to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
Welcome back. I've got Ryann Liebl online. Ryann, how are you today?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me.
Been looking forward to this conversation for a while. So why don't you share a little bit about you and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Sure. So, my background is an interesting background. I was born and raised in Wisconsin. I moved to Los Angeles when I was 18 to go to school out there. I got in front of the camera very quickly, started acting, and then I moved behind the camera when I was about 24. And I'm a filmmaker. I'm also in charge of live video production at a creative agency called Light Touch Media Group. We work with Fortune 500 companies, creating anything from ads, commercials, documentaries, internal HR material, training, etc. So that's me very quickly.
Well, it's amazing work that you get to do. And obviously you've leveraged your filmmaking and Hollywood skills and all of that to, bring it to, Fortune 500 companies and all the content that they have and should be producing because anymore, used to a company, years and years ago, companies say, okay, we're Fortune 500, here's this, and that would be that. They wouldn't have to produce a whole lot because everybody knew who they were. Well, now, video is king, has been for a long time, will continue to be so. And people want to know more about a company, not just what they do, but who they are. And then, the internal side of things too is a big, big thing because, you know, video is one of those things that can carry, a longevity to it and also bring out the stories, the real stories of people where everyone would be able to witness it over a period of time, including onboarding to new initiatives to we're taking on this, new endeavor. We think we'll pick on Apple for a second. Their announcements are, a lot more, I don't say advanced, but there's a lot more going on with them than when Steve was there. There's video, there's training, there's graphics, there's all kinds of different things going on in it. And they're not just, holed up in some San Francisco conference room giving a presentation with, the presentation behind the screen on them. No, there's time and effort and things going into that. And people are getting accustomed to that and they want to see that. So I think the work that you do is absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, super brands, right? I call those guys super brands. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Apple, right? Nike, those guys are super brands. And it's interesting too, because I've met a few companies that are trying to get to that point, right? They want to become super brands. They want to get to that level. And it's an interesting push in marketing and content to actually have that expansion, right? Actually to get to that level. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating times. I think more than ever, especially with the younger generation, they are going to social media. That's how they find out about a company. That's how they decide what they're going to eat, what they're going to buy, etc. So all of these large companies, which, used to be able to just get away with, like you're saying, bit of video, a bit of content, maybe some internal things, have to now really start being forward facing, right? And make themselves known because it's funny too, like a lot of these younger generations, I'll mention companies like, let's say Kohler in Wisconsin, right? They make toilets and sinks and tubs and, their products are everywhere, right? They're everywhere, but people don't know that company, which is interesting, right? And they're trying to become a super brand. They are pushing hard to do that, but you're going to have to introduce yourself to younger audiences in order to do that, right? Because they're the ones who are coming up. So you have to make yourself known widely now, which is a very interesting shift.
True. And also, they have to get used to being on video where as you said, the younger generation that's on Instagram and TikTok and all the other platforms, yes, they're consuming the content from those, vendors and providers, but they're also on camera as well. Where, someone my generation, maybe not as much on camera earlier in my life, where these individuals are front and center. They're always on camera. And
Yeah.
I think that's gonna bode well for a lot of organizations going forward because when they hire talent like these individuals, if that's, the career path that they wanna go in, they're gonna have some skill sets that they learned on their own, not necessarily something they learned in school, which is an interesting dynamic. But, I think of, like the big brands, and I see a lot of them in their posts on social media and whatnot. And it's like, it's a different thing. It's a lot different from let's put a 30-second commercial on during the Super Bowl, which of course is really expensive and well thought out and planned, and there's all kinds of coordination with that. But
Yeah.
here's a 10-second ad. Okay, well, you better get to the point in 10 seconds, because otherwise, unless it's a continuation, like a storyline, which is a cool way to do things too, where it's like, okay, what's going to be the next commercial about, or what are they going to do with that horse? There's all kinds of different things that you can do, and that's where the creativity comes in. And I've found, and I'm sure you see this all the time, you meet with some extremely creative individuals in these organizations, but they probably hit a plateau, especially when they have to start doing video now, and, in social media and all that, that it's something new that they gotta learn. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, what's really fascinating with companies, and here's the deal: we work with small owner-operated manufacturing companies, IT companies, all the way up to Fortune 50, right? But the same thing is communicated at any level of company, and it has to do with bandwidth and manpower. Most of these companies don't have the people within them to create the amount of content and marketing material that they really need to create, because they're also wearing multiple hats within the company. And this is something I hear over and over and over again. So you can take a CMO and they're like, "Well, yeah, but I do this and I do that, but I also have to there's these events coming up, and then I have to do this trade show, and I have to prep for that, and I'm supposed to have the brochures, and then I'm supposed to have a video for the trade show." And then you say social media or anything else that's supposed to be online, and their eyes glaze over, right? It's like, I can't even I can barely function and do all of that, let alone create enough material, right, to get it out into the world on a massive scale and feed that algorithm monster. So what we do at Light Touch Media Group, we come in and we're that extension of that in-house team. So for all of those people that are, just the bandwidth's not there, they can't handle it, they dump it on us and they say, "Solve the problem," right? And that's what we do. So sometimes people need something turned over in 2 weeks and they're like, "It's coming up. I don't have time." We help with that, and then we help with long-term strategy too, of like, where are your holes and what's missing, and why don't you have testimonials? Simple things, right? Or why don't you have a company overview? Like, everybody has to have that now. That's just a no-brainer. You have to show what you do, you have to talk about your product, you have to talk about those differentiating factors, and at the same time, you have to talk about your company culture, because people wanna know, like, who am I gonna work with? Do I like these people? Do I not like these people? Like, do I like that attitude? Whatever it might be. So all of that branding, all of that marketing is essential now. And, all of us now are, we're searching. We're on our phones and we're searching and we're looking at reviews. And we're like, is there a testimonial? Because I want to know what it's like working with this company. Are they going to get it across the finish line? And what's really fascinating right now, and maybe you've been hearing this more and more, and we definitely are in the creative content marketing PR world, right? A lot of the really big agencies are scaling down, first of all, and there's more and more competition from smaller, sort of, local companies, right? But what I hear over and over again from clients who go with these smaller companies, or, "Hey, I'm just going to hire a videographer," or, "I'm just going to go with this local company, and, they help restaurants and whatever." They don't get the products across the finish line. And they're following up with the company and saying, "Hey, how's that edit going on my video?" Or, "Did you get the social cuts done?" Or, "Any news?" Right? And that's a huge issue too, because because somebody has a good reel and they say, oh yeah, we can do this and we can come out, we can shoot and da 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 da. It does not mean, first of all, that they know what they're doing, that they're going to get the product for you, that you're not going to have to handhold. And also at the same time, they don't know best practices. Like if they put a voiceover on or the messaging or the scripting, they don't know what you're supposed to say or what you're supposed to do. So it's very fascinating. It's a shifting time, right? And we also see AI, which I'm sure you've been talking to people about. And it's such an incredible tool. And so we're implementing AI. We're implementing at the front end, implementing AI in the creative. We're using it as a tool to speed things up and make things faster because, as you know, things are moving faster and faster and faster and faster. It is a completely different world in terms of speed out there. So it's very fascinating what's happening and occurring. But I would always say to any company out there, look at the brands that the company works with, right? Really check out their logos and ask for testimonials and get those examples, because that local person who's sort of offering something very cheaply is going to give you more headaches in the long run. And it's fascinating how many people just don't do that. They don't understand it. I'll give you an example. We're working with a dentist and he wanted to do a website and SEO and some social media content. He paid for it a lot of money and he has not heard back from this company. And again, this just happens over and over and over again. And I said to him, well, did you vet them? Did you check them out? Did you see what their logos are? Did you see what other companies they've worked with? Do they have testimonials? He's like, no, no, no. It was just cheap. And I wanted to do it cheap. And I'm like, okay, well, then you're going to get cheap results, right? So always a middle ground with all of it, but it's a fascinating time, as I'm sure people are talking about.
Most definitely, and there's so many things to pull out of that. The first, we'll pick on the last example. Yeah, it reminds me. I worked with a sales guy at a telco company many years ago, and for some reason I was pulled into a meeting. It wasn't involving me, but another VP and this sales VP and myself were in this room, and he said, "Mike, I need you to learn something." And I'm thinking, what did I do? He said, no, you didn't do anything wrong, but this is a lesson I think it's really important for you to do. And no, you either do it right the first time or you're going to be doing it at least 3 times. Because if you do it wrong, you're going to have to undo what you did and then do it again the right way. So you've just done it 3 times. Do you have time to do that? No. So that dentist that wanted a website with the SEO and everything he wanted to have, he poured whatever money that they put into it, and the results they're getting is obviously nothing. So they're going to have to go out and bring in somebody else like yourself to do it right. And, and just basically, you might look at the stuff or you might go, you know what, I'm going to tabula rasa this and gone. And we're going to start from, nothing. That way we don't have to figure out what did they do, what didn't they do. And it's just a lot easier to do that. And again, it's to the point of the comment you made earlier about somebody saying, okay, I've got this event coming up 2 weeks. I just don't have time. Please make this work. That's what we do. We problem solve. And I see it time and time again where organizations have whoever it is. It could be their CMO. It could be their executive director. And nonprofits, I see this all the time. So, okay, we want you to lead the company. Oh, but we also want you to fundraise. Oh, we also want you to handle the social media. And we want you to do this and do that. And it's like, you know what?
Yep.
You're going to get garbage results. I don't care how great that person is. They may be salt of the earth type of people, but you're going to get garbage results. Quit having your person that is geared for this do all this other little stuff. And I think that's where AI may help. But again, that person, let's say it's that CMO, it's like, okay, I can use AI to help me with this.
Yeah.
They have to know how to train the AI, just like you have to train an employee. Everybody thinks, oh, AI is going to fix it. AI is going to follow the instructions you give. If you give it garbage instructions, guess what you're going to get? It's not going to say, that I have a better way. They haven't figured that part out yet. At least I haven't seen it. But again, it's a great tool, much like anything else. But it's you have to make sure you properly train it. And we all know in the history of the workforce, training has not been a top priority. And marketing, for some reason, is one of those areas where whenever there's any little bit of tightening of the belt, to go, well, we got to look at our marketing budget. I'm like, yeah, you do need to look at your marketing budget. You need to spend more on marketing. And I'm originally an accountant, and I always knew that one, because if they don't know about you, how are they going to buy from you?
That's right. Yeah, and that's something that I say to people all the time, and it's interesting having been, in the acting world, filmmaking, commercials, right, and coming up now and working with larger companies. It, Marketing and promotion is the thing that you should spend all of your money on all the time. It doesn't matter what category of business you are. That's where you actually have to put your money. Because if you want to increase your sales, right, and you want to make more sales and you want to make yourself known, you have to create attention. Attention is the key to making money, right? And it doesn't matter. Like I've made movies, right? And if I didn't market them, like if I didn't have enough money to market and promote them, nobody's going to see the movie, right? So it doesn't matter what category of business you are in, you have to spend the money there, and you cut in other places. You cut on personnel, you cut on overhead, you cut on brick and mortar, but you dump your money into promotion and marketing, especially when sales start to go down. That's when, and it's bizarre, and I'm sure you're talking about, you've seen it over and over again. That's where they'll cut, and it's so weird because they're literally cutting their heads off. And so many people don't understand that or know that, which is odd to me. But that's where you should put the money. When the sales start to dump or something starts to go wrong, put it in the promotion and the marketing, and then you'll ramp it back up again. It's night and day. It's always what happens. It always works. And we're talking about AI and as a tool, but yeah, as you know, you have to have a person in charge no matter what. You have to have a person there who's running things and creating things. Because AI is great. Again, it can help you storyboard. It can help you come up with structure. It can help you with bright ideas. It can even tell you, maybe what stock to buy, right? Hey, this one's going up and this one's going down. Cool. It's a neat tool, but you need a human being there to drive it, control it, focus it, right? And that's with any marketing or content, it has to be, that's a key element to success.
Yeah, it is, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's like when things are going down, so you find the money. I ran a nonprofit several years ago and found $250,000 in overhead expense savings. It wasn't, getting rid of anybody or anything like that. I just looked at our office supply spend and renegotiated a contract with one of the big carriers out there, rhymes with Staples, and was able to negotiate a really sweet deal with them as long as we bought Staples branded products. So the Post-it notes, the pens, paper
Wow.
clips, that kind of stuff. We were a multi-site organization, so we were operating a small nonprofit, but it was from 12 to 15 million budget that we were playing with. But I found $250,000. And what did we do with that as a nonprofit? We launched new programs and served more people. We didn't have to ask for a dime from the government or funders or anything like that. We just negotiated a really sweet deal with the office supply and their telco companies and some other things. It's like, for me, again, the accountant side of things goes, we got to generate more revenue. It's like, well, let's look at the expenses first and see if we can find some efficiencies. And we did. And and didn't touch, marketing budget. It's like, no, we got this new program. Who's going to find out about it? Are they just going to be walking down the sidewalk and it's going to through osmosis through the wall? No, we need to know about that. So what do we do? And this was at a time where, internet marketing was still, growing kind of thing. And our presence wasn't the best. And most of our clients, it was a lower income area at that time. So smartphones still weren't a big deal. So we said, well, we gotta go old school here. Let's do some flyers, let's do some community outreach, let's do whatever we need to do, and let's invest some money in there because, well, I found $250,000. Let's not all spend it on something dumb. Let's actually get some benefit out of this, and allowed us to serve a client base that we were unable to before. That's just a simple example in a nonprofit. Now we talk about businesses and internet marketing and social media posts and things like that. spend on how to, get your people to pay attention to you. And we think of all the big brands now that didn't exist 5 years ago that are, word of mouth. Everybody knows who they are. Well,
Right.
we didn't find out about them just because we were thumbing through Fortune or Inc. magazine and there was an article on it. Maybe there was, but in all
Yeah.
likelihood, no, it was the promotion. It was getting out there and say, hey, look at us. Look who we are.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and it just comes back to attention because business is people, right? It's networking and it's people. And if people don't know about you, you're not going to do well, right? You're going to struggle and possibly close your doors. So it's people, right? And it's helping people. And this is what I talk about all the time is like we're all helping someone, right? We create a business to fill a need, right? Whether it's a product that you want somebody to buy or a software you want somebody to use or a car that you want to give to somebody to make them feel good about themselves, you're helping people, right? It's all about help. And so, I always say to companies like talk about your story, talk about how you started, talk about where it began and why you came up with the idea and what was so great about it because you have to differentiate yourself too because when you're competing with so many different people at any given time, there has to be that differentiating factor. But I always come back to storytelling because it works. It always works. And it's worked for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And it's amazing to me how many different companies, they just won't say anything personal about themselves. They won't talk about where they began or their origins or why they came up with the concept. It's just information. It's just selling, right? They just want to sell the product, sell the product, sell the product. But that never gets people to buy a product. People always buy something because of story, you know?
It reminds me, how I discovered this the other day. I don't know, but we all remember Kmart. Okay. It was a huge retail store, in the US that has pretty much disappeared because of, you can do research on it and learn why. Yeah, I know they were originally based out of Michigan where I grew up. So I know the story a little closer than, many other people do. But somehow I was, just stumbling around something and I came across an, it was a link to something to Kmart Australia. Anyway, and the logo was the same. I'm like, this is interesting. So I went down that rabbit hole and found their website. And I'm like, okay. And I saw that they have 55,000 employees. And I'm thinking, what? And, even 24-hour stores and things like that. And I'm like, okay, the Aussies love them some Kmart, apparently. I mean, what in the world's this all about? So I started researching. And, of course, they have the About Us on their website, and they laid out the history of it and the story of it and why they do what they do and how they value their people, and they're so happy to be around and do all these things. And it really, I didn't look at their social media, but I'm assuming it's fairly active. And I just got that. I'm like, okay, I know about that store now. Now, am I going to buy something from it? No, because the shipping costs to send something from there, especially with tariffs and everything else, it's like I could probably buy 5 shirts around the corner than, if I ordered one from there. But I appreciated that. And it's like, it's easy to do, but it's unfortunately easy not to do. And as you've seen, so many organizations like, no, no, we don't want to do this. We're this company, and here we are, and we make toilets, okay, and this, and everybody buys us, and we're in Home Depot and all that, but we don't need to market that. And I ran into this situation a couple of years ago. I was speaking at a wastewater conference, and it was about HR and retention was my talk, because the problem that particular industry, like many others, and like grain elevators are another example, and farming and whatnot, is for generations and generations, the kids of the kids of the kids of the kids worked in the industry. Well, now the generations today, they don't want to work in that industry. So all of a sudden, these organizations have to brand themselves and market and advertise for jobs, and they've never done that before. So they are, so that's some leads for you if you want to, so grain elevators and wastewater, two industries that are struggling mightily trying to find people. And how do you get people enticed? Branding, like wastewater, for example. It's like, okay, what's about that? Clean water. that's something that people want to hear about. So just gave you
We've worked with some wastewater companies,
okay.
and that's interesting, and they have never said that before, but I find that fascinating. Yeah, it reminds me too of like Kohl's. So I grew up in Wisconsin, and Kohl's was a company, right? A department store kind of thing. Not necessarily high end, right? Sort of middle ground or whatever. And we knew Herb Kohl because he was like a figure, right, in Milwaukee. He was into philanthropy and the NBA and all kinds of things like that. And Kohl's was just a local Wisconsin company. And it was fascinating because about 20 years ago they started opening more, nationally. And that was really interesting for me to see. And he ended up, I think, selling the company is what he did, right? So they could expand. But their branding's so fascinating because they don't promote a lot. They do ads, right? They do simple ads, simple department store ads, but they have all their reward program, and you get all the Kohl's cash and everything when you shop there and things like that. But yeah, it's a fascinating thing, right? But Kohl's had a great story, right? And they also had like grocery stores and stuff like that. And he ended up closing those and then just did the department store thing. But so in Wisconsin, there was already a story. This was, a known family. Herb Kohl was known. He was a philanthropist. He had these two branches, and then all of a sudden you see it expand, but they did an amazing job with their promotion and their marketing. You always saw something in a newspaper, right? You always saw the coupons, and then you always saw something on TV about them. They were always advertising, always, and doing print campaigns, and they were always in magazines. That's what created, right, their success was the constant promotion and marketing. So, yeah.
My mom used to work for a Kohl's store, so my gifts were a lot of clothes and stuff like that. And I see stuff, and she's like, okay, I'm going to Kohl's. And even with my kids when they were little, they'd come into town to visit, and they'd grab all the kids, like, okay, we're going shopping, we're going to Kohl's. And I don't know how, she'd lay out the Kohl's dollars and just pay for all kind of stuff. And my kids were like, you know it was so funny. One of my kids grabbed the Monopoly box and grabbed the money out. So I'm going to the store and buying like grandma buys, and I'm laughing. I'm like, oh yeah, it's not. It's I wanted to kind of let her do it to see the reaction, but I'm like, no, honey, let me explain something for you. And kind of mapped it out as much as I could to a 5-year-old, but it was so cute. She's like, oh, grandma's loaded. She's got all these Kohl's dollars. It's like she's gonna buy all my clothes. So I was so thankful that mom did that. But it was such a cute story to see a little kid go, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna grab this. So she's like, yeah, good thing that we only had the Monopoly money, because if we had other games that had currency in it, okay, where's all the Monopoly money? It's like, oh, the kid, took it off to the store. So I love this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and all this amazing work you're doing?
Our website is expertcreativehelp.com.
Hmm?
They can find us there. I'm all over social media, so if you have questions or you want to know more about our content media agency, you can reach out to me. Yeah, that's where we are, Expert Creative Help, and the company's Light Touch Media Group.
Awesome. I'll have that in the show notes. So Ryan, thanks so much for being on the show today. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.